Hi, this is Barry Phillips with 10-Minute Torah, Day 2 of Vayishlach, being interpreted, and he sent. This is in reference to Yaakov sending messengers, Malachim, to warn Esau or to inform Esau of his brother that I'm coming home. The word Malachim in Hebrew is not only translated messengers as we would send emissaries on our behalf, it's also the same word that we translate into the English idea of angels. Were these human or spiritual messengers? One can only guess, but I think they were spiritual. That's my personal preference and thought. Going on. Yesterday we talked about the word of two camps, and I related to you the idea of two camps referencing the life of the spirit and the life of the flesh, which Rav Shaul talks about in Romans chapter 8 and Galatians chapter number 5, that these two are constantly warring one against the other. Let me introduce another text to you from Malachi chapter 1, where Yah says, Yaakov I have loved, Esau I have hated. His love for Yaakov was not based on perfection, in that Yaakov never made a mistake and that he always did exactly what was right. There are many occasions in all of the patriarchs' lives where we would ask ourselves, what are they doing? Why are they making such a choice? How did they get by with that? But rather the word is tamim. It means to be whole or complete. The idea is to be wholehearted, to seek after the Most High with a whole heart. That doesn't mean we don't make mistakes, that we don't make bad choices, or that we never sin. It means that our whole heart seeks to go after him in spite of our human failings. Esau, on the other hand, is hated because he finds perfection or the approval of himself because of his religiosity, or is a big word. His feigned righteous and upright standing when his heart is corrupt and he is giving to catering to the flesh. Now, Yaakov, it says here in chapter 32 and verse number 3, that Yaakov sent messengers before him to Esau, his brother, and the word was, tell them that I have sojourned with Laban until now. That was no easy task. Esau would have understood that that meant a very hard road for Yaakov. Yaakov's allowing him to know, I haven't been out living a wild, fanciful, and rich life of luxury. I have been under the press. I have been pressured. I have been scrutinized. I have been all but robbed of my very being. But I've survived. I have dealt with Laban and I have overcome. And now I am returning, he says, with bulls, donkeys, flocks, male and female servants. And I'm informing you, Esau, to find favor in your eyes. Esau, I'm coming home with sustenance and some means, but it's not been without trial. And I didn't get this by trickery. I've earned this, is what he's trying to allow him to know. The messengers returned with an interesting word in the Hebrew. It says here that they told him, we came to your brother Esau. That's the English translation. The Hebrew says, we came to your brother, to Esau. In other words, your brother is still Esau. And he's coming to meet you with 400 men. Now, I don't know how big an army Esau thought Yaakov had, but he's coming to him with a considerable force, and if they're following Esau, then they're ruthless, they're catering to the flesh, and they're driven. Let's consider Esav and Ya'acov for a moment and relate it to what we were talking about in the spirit and the flesh yesterday. There's some rabbinical thought I want to share with you. One speaks of Yah's warning to Cain, saying, sin crouches at the door and desires to devour you. The rabbinical idea is that when a person is born, at the door of the womb, the sin nature is sitting there seeking to devour even the infant. Again, rabbinical thought says that when a child is within the womb, their soul having just come from the presence of the Most High, that they have perfect knowledge of things spiritual and full knowledge of the Torah. It's after they began to hang out with you and I, who live in the physical and more fleshly realm, that they become unrighteously influenced and that they lose that perfect knowledge. A child is born in innocence and impurity. The old wives' tale is that when a child is grinning at the ceiling, well, they're seeing angels. And well, that very well may be the case. I know in the case of my 4 grandchildren at birth, the first thing that they heard from me was to hold them up in front of my face and in Hebrew sing to them the Shema. Hear, O Israel, Yahweh your Elohim, Yahweh is Echad. And following that, I would sing to them the Aaronic blessing, again in Hebrew. Their eyes would open, they would become transfixed on my face, their ears obviously listened to every word that I was singing to them, and on occasion I would even see that their lips were moving, almost as if they were trying to sing the song with me. I find that fascinating. To this day, when we sing the Shema to my grandchildren, there is a calming effect that comes over them. If they're staying here at the house, that's the last thing they hear before we say good night. And oftentimes they enter quickly into a state of rest, having heard the Shema. So again, it is the idea that the evil inclination, the unrighteous carnal nature, is at war with the righteous inclination. Rabbis teach, and I agree with this, that when a man begins to seek after purity, it is then, when he's crying out for righteousness, that the evil inclination begins to lose its strength and its ability, and the righteous inclination surpasses and overcomes the evil inclination. If you're struggling with sin, if you're struggling with unrighteous areas in your life, crying out for purity and asking the Father to turn your heart toward righteousness is a vital step in overcoming and gaining victory. Now, let's go on. So we find then that Esau is coming with 400 servants. It's interesting to me that the number 400 is used here. Jezebel had 400 priests of Asherah, the queen of heaven. This meant that these 400 men had lost their masculinity. They had become eunuchs, and they lost their masculinity to serve the queen of heaven. The spirit of Jezebel, I believe, is the ruling entity, principality, if you will, over our nation here in America. We are given very much to that which is sensual. Men are played and lose their genuine masculinity to pornography. It would seem that men are driven by things sexual and sensual. It would seem then that the feminine power is a rising power to try to rule the day. These 400 men of Esau, they speak to me of those that are giving to that seducing spirit, who are ruled by their flesh. I do not speak of Christianity here. I'm not saying of those who are genuinely walking with the Messiah, who are genuinely born again, and who are in church and seeking to walk uprightly before the Master. That's not who I'm referencing here. But the number 400 in Hebrew is the sign of the Tav. There are those that have misappropriated the execution stake of our Messiah, that are not focusing on the one who redeems them, but rather on the symbolism and the institution attached to it, the professional pomp, splendor, institution of man-made religion. They emblaze the Tav on their shields and go and massacre people in the name of the Most High, as our history has shown. It's also interesting that that same institution venerates Mary as a female deity. So what do we have a picture of here? Interesting. Let's draw some conclusions tomorrow. Until then, shalom.